Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back, friends, to another session of fluid mechanics and rate processes. We will go back to the governing equations now and then look at the various approximations that we can make depending on the flow regime. So, let me begin first by reviewing the flow equations. So, first we will consider the steady incompressible flows. So, we have looked at these equations many times. The first is the continuity equation, which is divergence of V equal to 0. So, this is the mass balance, or what we also call it as the continuity equation. Right? The next one is the force balance, or what we call as the momentum equation, and we are dealing with a steady flow. So, we will not write the time dependent term. So, that would be rho V dot gradient of V. That is the convective term. So, this is the convective acceleration, or what we also call as the inertial term. Then we have the pressure gradient. So, this is the pressure gradient. And on the right hand side we have the viscous term, which is the Laplacian of the velocity field. And then we have a body force. So, this I am going to write as rho F. This is body force. This equation, as we said, is actually the force balance, and we had assumed that there is a Newtonian fluid. So, this is, we have assumed it is a Newtonian fluid, and we also call this as the Navier-Stokes equations. Let me number these equations. This is 1 and this I will call it as 2. So, these are fairly general equations as far as a steady flow is concerned, and it is assumed to be incompressible. Now, let me make another assumption, which is that the body force is conservative. What this mathematically implies is that I should be able to represent the body force as the gradient of a certain quantity. So, in this case, if I look at gravity as the body force, then if the gravity acts in the minus z direction, I should be able to write rho F as minus gradient of z, g, z times a rho. Okay? And you will notice that because this gradient involves the derivatives with respect to x, y and z in the 3 directions, so what will come out of this is essentially just the minus rho g, which is f. If I plug this into equation 2, then I can combine this gradient and from the rho f this gradient. And therefore, I should be able to write equation 2 can be rewritten as rho v dot gradient v plus a gradient of p plus rho g z. Okay, so I have combined them, and this is now equal to mu times Laplacian of v. So let me call this equation as 2 prime. Okay, it's essentially the same equation, but I have just plugged in. And now I can call this as a modified pressure. So instead of dealing with simply P, I can now call this at P prime, which is the modified pressure. So I hope you are able to see that as far as the hydrostatic pressure head is concerned, because of the gravity, we don't really have to worry about that so much as far as the differential equations are concerned. So we can now get back rho v dot gradient of v plus gradient of p prime, this is mu Laplacian of v, and this equation I can call this as number 3. So now my flow equations are 1, which is the mass balance, and equation 3, which is the force balance. Okay. What I will do now is, and we have done this before, I will try to non-dimensionalize these equations. So let us non-dimensionalize one and 3. And I will use the same variables that we did earlier. So we are going to say that let x star be the non-dimensional x variable, and that's going to be given as x divided by L, which is the characteristic length. Similarly, v is going to be given as v star is going to be given as v divided by capital U, and I am going to non-dimensionalize p star as simply p prime divided by rho capital U square. So here let me just say that L and U are characteristic length and speed. And we gave certain examples earlier that if I look at flow past an airplane, so the free stream speed or the speed of the airplane can be thought of as capital U, and we could take a length scale, for example the length of the aircraft as L. Okay, now what I can do is, as we did earlier, we can rewrite equations 3 and equation 1 in terms of these non-dimensional variables, and we have done this before. So let me just write down the equations for you. You can practice them on your own. So the equations would turn out to be the following. So the continuity equation would turn out to be simply divergence star, which is the divergence operator in the non-dimensional form of the velocity field in the non-dimensional form equal to 0. So nothing really changes. And equation 3, so let me call this as 1D, which means it is non-dimensional, and I would also now write down 3D. So this would appear as V star dot gradient star of V star plus the gradient star of P star, this would be 1 over Reynolds number of Laplacian of V star. Okay? And here, so this would be 3D. And the Reynolds number Re is defined as rho times the characteristic speed u times the length scale L divided by mu. And we have already seen in the earlier sessions that this actually corresponds to the ratio of inertial force to the viscous force. So we have looked at these equations before, but today we are going to argue in a slightly different perspective. Okay, so let's take a moment to understand what these equations tell us. So the first equation is simply saying that for a velocity field to be viable, okay, I could have any velocity field, but for it to exist so that it satisfies the balance law such as the continuity equation, it must be divergence free. Okay, so a velocity field which is not divergence free cannot be a physical representation of a flow, at least an incompressible flow. Okay, so that's the interpretation of equation 1D. Now let's come to equation 3D, which is the force balance equation. So as we noted, we are talking about three forces. So there is an inertial force, then there is a pressure gradient, so there is a pressure force, and then we have the viscous. These are the three forces that decide equation 3D. Okay? So essentially, equation 3D is telling us that somehow there has to be a very fine balance between the inertial force, the pressure force, and the viscous force. Now we already know that for any equation to be satisfied, okay, I cannot have a situation that two out of these three forces are negligible. So if I have a large inertial force, it must be balanced by either both pressure gradient and viscous forces being significant, or if I have a situation that inertial force is present and the viscous force is extremely tiny or insignificant, then it must be balanced by pressure gradient. So out of the three forces, at least two should be significant. Okay? So the bottom line is, in general, I could have all three of them significant, or in a special case, maybe one of them is not important and only two of them are significant. Okay? So I would say that there is a very nice interplay between these forces, and when I talk about different flow regimes, actually we are trying to figure out which one of these are important. Okay. So let me just summarize what I have said. So as the title of the session says, we are interested in flow regimes. What that really means is that which two forces are important. Okay. There is another motivation for doing this. These equations, as I have written them, they are extremely complex. Okay? Even though they are steady flows, they are still very difficult to solve. And you can very easily imagine that the difficulty comes from A, this is a non-linear term. Okay, the inertial term is non-linear because it involves product of V's, the V and gradient of V. All right. It is also second order. So, the viscous term has a second order derivative. And then we have, it is a coupled system. So, these are partial differential equations and they are coupled, the pressure and the velocity equations are coupled together. So, we cannot take a stand that we will solve only for velocity and leave pressure outside. We have to solve for all of them together. And then of course, the complications because of boundary conditions. So, getting solution to these equations is kind of difficult. Okay? You often cannot get analytical solutions. So, you will have to do some computational modeling and then get some approximate solution to that. However, suppose we are able to get rid of certain terms. Okay, so, out of these three varying forces, if I get a situation that maybe this term is not important and I can get rid of it, then perhaps my equations will become simple and then more tractable and I can determine a solution. Okay, so, that's pretty much the motivation of determining what the flow regimes are. So, from that point of view, let us talk about the first flow regime where I will say that the inertial terms are small. Okay, so let us talk about regime 1 where inertial terms are small and can be dropped. So, when can that happen? You can see that for the inertial term to be dropped, okay, I must have at least two terms remaining because we already argued. So, this term would become important if my Reynolds number is extremely small. So, as Reynolds number goes to 0, this term becomes large. So, I will have to retain that, and you know this is inertial, this is viscous. Reynolds tell me the ratio of the inertial to viscous. So, if Reynolds number is small, that means the inertial terms are small compared to viscous terms. So, I can retain this, I can get rid of this, and then the pressure will have to be balanced by viscous forces. So, this is essentially when Re tends to 0. Okay. So, the inertial terms are small with respect to the viscous term, and the viscous terms therefore have to be balanced by pressure. So, if that happens, then my equations are divergence of V equal to 0. So, I am going back now to my dimensional equations, and then my momentum equation, essentially I do not have to take the inertial term, and I would get gradient of P is essentially mu times Laplacian of V. So, this is an approximation that I can take if my Reynolds number is very small, and if it is identically 0, then of course these are exact solutions. If it is small but not 0, then this is an approximation. I am neglecting the inertial term. These are also called as Stokes flow because they were discovered by the scientist Stokes. Sometimes they are also referred to as creeping flows, because you can imagine we are looking at flows where the speeds are extremely small, therefore the inertial terms are negligible and the viscous terms are balanced by pressure. So, that is the name creeping flows. Okay. Now, some properties of this flow. What you can see right away is that now we are dealing with linear equations. The inertial term was the nonlinear term, and that is gotten rid of. So, both these equations are now linear, and hopefully they are easier to solve. Okay. There is no unsteady term. Okay. So, that obviously we have been able to get rid of. How about the boundary conditions? The boundary conditions, they are actually the same as for full equations, and those boundary conditions are the following. We have to still satisfy the no slip at the wall. So, wherever there is a solid wall, we will say that the fluid elements stick with the solid wall. So, if the solid wall has a certain speed or a certain velocity, the fluid elements next to the wall would also have the same velocity. That is the no slip at the wall. And then far away, we go to free stream values. Okay, that means the disturbance because of the body, that is negligible, which is essentially what was there for the full Navier-Stokes equations. The third observation we want to make here is about the creeping flows, that the equations are still second order, because the viscous term is retained and these are second order derivatives. So, they are retained, and that is why we would need the same number of boundary conditions as we needed for the full Navier-Stokes.